So death is a constant presence in comic books, but whether a death actually sticks or not, well, that's an entirely different topic. But there is no doubting that the Grim Reaper is always eagerly waiting to rear his head in your favourite comic books. And today we're back with a sequel to a sequel where we're looking at disturbing and disgusting comic book deaths. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 even more most disgusting comic book deaths. Number 8. Herr Kleiser gets eaten and pooped out. Mark Millar and Brian Hitch's The Ultimates was a comic book run that well and truly split opinion, with this fresh spin on Marvel's established heroes and villains being embraced by some readers, yet being detested by others. And one person particularly front and center in this line was the Hulk, especially when it came to the second volume of The Ultimates. Having beaten, dismembered, and even eaten parts of Abomination in the previous issue, The Ultimates 2 number 13 saw the Jade Giant having the nefarious Herr Kleiser in his sights. Kleiser had, by this point, been established as one of the main rogues of this world, with him having already handily bested Captain America, Nick Fury, and several other superheroes. With regeneration and shapeshifting as just 2 of his abilities, Herr was quite the formidable foe for this alt-realm Avengers. Deciding that the Hulk was their best hope of toppling Kleiser, Cap, Fury, and company slapped the out of Bruce Banner and launched him out of a helicopter. Of course, the angered Banner transformed into the Hulk, then set about decimating Herr Kleiser. In this case, decimating meant bashing Kleiser into a mush, eating what was left of him, and then pooping out the villain so that this literal turd could then be analysed. Number 7. The Beheading of Mera. Flashpoint is one of the great modern tales of DC Comics, taking established heroes and villains and flipping them all on their heads. After Barry Allen travelled back in time to prevent the death of his mother, that shaped an entirely different timeline. While Bruce Wayne died that night in Crime Alley, Thomas Wayne became a hard-drinking Batman. Martha Wayne became the Joker, Green Arrow is an arms dealer, Superman is a lab experiment, and Cyborg is the world's greatest protector. And in the backdrop of all of this is an all-out war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman. With the Atlanteans and the Amazons battling for dominance, one of many victims in the war is Mera. Upon realizing that her beau, Aquaman, had embarked on an affair with Diana, Mera heads off to confront Wonder Woman. Part defending her own relationship, part standing up for her underwater realm, poor Mera is dispatched off with ludicrous ease by Diana, being quickly beheaded. But what makes this particularly twisted is that Wonder Woman isn't just content at decapitating her rival. Oh no, she then takes to wearing Mera's royal headgear as part of her own armor. Oh, and she also sends the headless corpse of Mera back to the King of Atlantis. Number 6. Donatello's shell gets ripped off before he's beaten to death. One of the more notable comic book deaths in recent years, IDW's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle line is one that has been absolutely brilliant, but also at times absolutely brutal. Case in point, TMNT number 44 did the unthinkable and killed off Donatello. The concept of having one of our heroes in a half-shell perish was one that many were massively taken aback by, but even more jarring was the fashion in which Donnie was offed. In the Attack on Technodrome story, Donatello decides to stay at home while his brothers head out to stop Krang. Unfortunately, the tech genius of the Turtles is ambushed and outnumbered by Bebop and Rocksteady in an attack that ultimately costs him his life. Before his death eventually comes though, there's a rather sickening moment, off-panel of course, where Rocksteady smashes Donatello's shell with a sledgehammer, with the rogue quipping to Bebop, "Did you expect it to look like that under there?" It would be a whole 12 further pages until Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Master Splinter finally discovered the dead body of the fallen Donatello. With this the most disturbing, shocking moment in the 38-year history of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. While Donnie's demise was totally twisted, he would be alive and well a few months later, with his conscious initially taking over the body of Metalhead before returning to his own body. Number 5. GNUCCI loses her limbs and is then burned alive. When Marvel Comics relaunched its Punisher line in 2000, Welcome Back Frank immediately put Frank Castle back in the game in a major way. Not just was Castle again presented as a big deal, but this 12-issue run also made the nefarious GNUCCI feel like a genuine player in the world of Marvel. One of the most vicious crime bosses out there, GNUCCI and her family wanted the Punisher dead, and they would do whatever was needed to be done in order to achieve that goal. Unfortunately for them, not only did this crime clan run afoul of Frank and his vast pantheon of weapons, but they also had the misfortune of meeting Castle in Central Park Zoo. Forever one to make the most of his environment, Frank had goons swallowed by snakes, others eaten by piranhas, and then finally had GNUCCI attacked by a group of angry polar bears. Whilst GNUCCI would would make it out of this alive, she would lose her scalp and all 4 of her limbs in the process. Determined to get revenge on Castle, GNUCCI's fate is ultimately sealed when Frank pays her a visit, mocks her for her new form, always the classy guy there Frank, and then sets her and her house on fire. Even when Ma dives out of a window for one last attack on the Punisher, he brutally punts her body back into the burning building where she'd finally perish. Grim. Number 4. Spider-Man snacks on MJ and Aunt May. In reality, the whole Marvel Zombies line was designed so that readers could get a glimpse of their favorite heroes and villains committing disgusting acts of savagery and cannibalism. As such, there are a multitude of monstrous mauling murders committed across these tales. And for Earth 2149's Peter Parker, he managed to ride out the virus wave that was whipping through his realm. Well, that was until Colonel America finally infected this version of Spider-Man. Once infected, old Webhead does his best to try and resist his cravings for human flesh, but unfortunately, these urges become too much for Peter to bear, and he ends up eating Mary Jane. Not content with just that, Parker then decides to feast on his dear old Aunt May. And just to make things even more twisted, our wallcrawler then kills the reanimated corpses of MJ so that he can keep the flavoursome delights of May to himself. The revelation about MJ and May was made in Marvel's Zombies Returns, with this showing Spidey reflecting back on these heinous acts as he looks to rid himself of his infected curse and save the world. And doing all of this as his body literally decays. Grim. Number 3. The accidental murder of Sue DIBNY and the subsequent fallout. Not just was the death of Sue DIBNY in itself disturbing, but the follow-up to this and the subsequent revelations made the whole affair even more chilling. And said demise came in the 2004 Identity Crisis event, with Jean Loring being revealed to be the person behind Sue's murder. For those not familiar with Loring, at the time she was the separated wife of Ray Palmer, aka the Atom. Desperate to win back her ex, Jean used a bunch of Ray's tech to create a threat to the families of the other heroes as part of some bizarre plan to have Palmer come to her rescue. Loring didn't mean to kill Sue DIBNY, but this plan triggered an aneurysm that killed Sue. In a desperate attempt to cover up this act, Jean set fire to DIBNY's body and house in order to hide what really happened. If this wasn't traumatic enough, readers would then find out that Sue was pregnant at the time of her death and that she was sexually assaulted years prior by Dr. Light in a horrific attack that had been wiped from the mind of Batman by Zatanna, because the Dark Knight originally wanted to exact brutal revenge on Light. Number 2. Sue Storm gets the blood of her brother sprayed on her. In terms of relatively modern comic books that do exactly what they say on the tin, few can match Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. As readers got to see Deadpool, well, you get the picture. Here, the merc with a mouth embarks on a murder spree that sees him slice and dice his way through a who's who of Marvel Comics' greatest heroes. Spider-Man, Captain America, Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, Doctor Strange, Wolverine, and the Punisher are just a few of those who have their lives brought to a crashing halt by Deadpool in the 2012 story. The first people to fall victim to Wade's roaring rampage here are Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. As the tale opens, we find the already mangled, overstretched, dying form of Reed Richards, and it's not long before Johnny Storm is added to Deadpool's burgeoning body count. For poor Sue Storm, she's the one that finds the dying husk of Reed, and then she witnesses Wade kill her brother Johnny. It's grim enough that the Invisible Woman has to watch Deadpool slice her sibling's throat with a katana, but making this all the more disturbing is that Johnny's blood spurts out onto the invisible form of Sue, giving away her position to Deadpool. Barely a page later, Sue Storm herself is likewise dead at the hands of Wade Wilson. And number 1, Laurie's dying body smothers baby Judith. Yeesh, talk about a rough read. The TV fate of The Walking Dead's Laurie Grimes was bad enough, yet the fate of her comic book counterpart was even worse. In TV land, Laurie dies while giving birth to baby Judith. For fear of reanimation, young Carl Grimes then has to put a bullet into his deceased mother to stop her coming back as a walker. That stands as one of the show's most jarring, shocking moments to date, but it is nothing when compared to what happened to Laurie and Judith in the comics. There, Laurie actually survives childbirth and gets to spend some time with her second-born child. Unfortunately, one of the governor's raids on the prison ends in the death of both mother and daughter. As Laurie grabs Judith and runs for safety, one single bullet ends up piercing them both. The fatally wounded Laurie collapses, falling on top of Judith and smothering the infant, with the end result being the death of both characters. Though the Walking Dead TV series hasn't shied away from killing kids, this fate for Laurie and Judith was even too much for the AMC show to bring to live-action life. And for that, I can only say, Thank you. I didn't need to see that again. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 even more most disgusting comic book deaths. Now, it'd be wrong for me to say I hope that you enjoyed that, but I hope that you got something from this. As like I say, some of the stuff we've covered today is pretty, disturbing. But if you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my streaming and board game stuff outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.